Hello and welcome to an episode of
Absolute Game Off. Nerd!
All right. Yes, and this is our 100th episode, and we got a whale of a guest with us today. We have Travis from Landry Pop Collectibles. Travis, say hi. How are you doing?
Hello, thank you for having. I feel honored to be the guest of episode 100. What a milestone for the show!
Yeah. No, I've been following you, and I've been like, I gotta get this guy on. And then I was looking at it, I was like, oh, this will be 100. It works out great. So glad to have you here. But let's get into it. I know, obviously, a lot of people probably are following you on Instagram in the community, and they kind of know of the Landry Pop, and we're definitely gonna get there. And I want to talk a lot about that. But I want to first start with kind of taking it all back. What is your origin story when it comes to this hobby? Like,
Oh,
when you were a
man.
kid? Yeah, take me back.
All right, so origin story is my true first love was Transformers action
Oh,
figures.
yeah.
That was the gateway drug, and it was my parents. I grew up in a household going to auctions and antiques. My parents collected Victoriana pottery, all the stuff that's basically worthless today, and the first thing I fell in love with was a 1985 Generation 1 Jetfire. And me being born in 95, it's not like it's a toy that I actually grew up with. I saw this thing and it was like, whoa, oh my God. And, my parents put in my mind, like, this is a toy you don't play with. You got to put it on a shelf when we found it at a local hobby shop. So I just applied that mentality to every single toy. So I was, the kid growing up at 12, I never played with any of my toys. I just put them on shelves and looked at them. But when it came to comics, April 2008, Iron Man introduction, first film in the MCU, I was 12 years old. So it's like seeing that film blew my mind. And I remember coming home from the cinema, like from the theater that day, being like Iron Man, learning the history about it, Tales of Suspense 39, reading a digital copy of that book. And for me, comics, like, at that point, since I was 12, became a historical addiction, right? Like literature, good books, and it just opened the floodgates to me to learn about everything Marvel, DC, and it just created this never-ending quest.
Yeah,
Really.
awesome. I actually really want to back up just a bit. I want to talk a little bit about Transformers because I too loved Transformers. The first thing I'll say, since you mentioned the action figures, when I was a kid, like my brother's favorite was Optimus Prime, and we had multiple of the Optimus Prime toys. But my favorite was Ultra Magnus, and I swear you could never find the Ultra Magnus toy, so I never got it. But I always loved Ultra Magnus. But so I don't know if do you know that key of the character I'm talking about?
Of course, I got. When I mean like Transformers are my core hard passion. When I was I was still actually in college when I was working on it, but I helped the most recent price guide, the Ultimate Guide to Transformers by Mark Bellamo. I provided all the factory sealed pricing for that price guide. Like literally Transformers, especially if you want to get super deep, my true focus is 1987 to 1991 Japanese domestic market exclusive Transformers. So all like Super God Master Force, Victory, Transformers Zone, Operation Combination, the things we never got in the United States. That is what I really love when it comes to the Transformers market. But I love it all,
Yeah, that's awesome. And I tell people that original cartoon movie where Optimus gets killed, I think that movie still slaps. It's so good. And
of course, the original 86 film, yeah, it's incredible. And that scene, when Optimus Prime dies, and all of a sudden the colors fade to gray. It's like, whoa, oh my God, the hero being killed.
Yeah, I also that moment before like the battle happens, he's like, one must fall, one will stand, one will fall, and it like slowly. Yes. Oh man, it gives me the chills even when I see like the clips of that. It's so good.
I can't wait to be able to watch that film. Like my son Everett, he's 7 months old. I can't wait to expose him to that. And then especially when you get like the Stan Bush, the touch, you got the touch.
Yes,
like the whole theme, it just embodies the 1980s vibe.
Oh yeah, it's so good. I absolutely love it. Awesome. But yeah, let's go back. Okay, so Iron Man. Now let's say so you're obviously considerably younger than me if you're 12 in 2008. So I was already an adult I obviously as well loved Iron Man. I was obviously knew of Iron Man before then, but take me to so you dove into TOS 39. Where else did you go from there?
And then it was so growing up for me, the actual comics that I read like religiously on a monthly basis were the IDW Transformers comics.
Mm-hmm.
So really prior to, other than like, the Spider-Man animated series and some other cartoons as a kid, I'd never really had that full exposure into Marvel and DC until all the films started coming out. And it just, after reading TOS 39, I just dove into, like, I remember reading Spider-Man 1. And it's funny, I actually read Amazing Spider-Man 1 before I actually read Amazing Fantasy 15.
15.
Yeah, because that was, it's funny being in the comic book market today of how that relates to me, because I can't deny it's not like I grew up reading this material. I mean, I'm 29 years old today. So comics have always been a historical component to the media that I actually grew up with, but I made sure to go back to the roots and read all the books.
Now, let me ask you, being at that age, going back to reading that kind of Silver Age stuff, did you at all not find it corny or campy or anything like that?
No, I mean, I'm a 12-year-old kid, everything is just like, whoa, it blows your mind at that point. And I do remember after reading Tales of Suspense 39 and Incredible Hulk, I really went a little esoteric and I started reading like pre-hero Tales to Astonish.
Oh, okay.
And I remember vividly reading like 13, first appearance of Groot, and then going into 27, first appearance of Ant-Man. And now it's like when I make sure in present day at work, it's like anytime I get a key book in that I haven't read physically, I make sure I read that book before I submit it for grading.
So you'll read that raw copy?
Yeah. So like my current auction that's up on the 22nd, I read the entire Detective Comics 27 that is currently bid up to $500,000.
Yeah, I just looked today. Yeah, I just looked at
it gives people a heart, but at the end of the day, my mentality is it's a comic book. No matter whether it's worth $500,000 or it's worth $1, this is a book that was made for people to enjoy and read. So I made sure I sat at my dining room table, I put it down, and I went page by page. I read the story. I read 31. And because these things are meant to be enjoyed. Value is relative.
I want to ask, so what is the protocol? Like, are you like carefully, is there like a sheet down? Like how is there any, like, are you just going at it?
Honest to God, people might, want to pin me, like crucify. I literally sat and I read that book imagining like I was the kid in 1939 buying this comic off the newsstand. I wanted to embody that feeling of being like, here I am, May 1939, I'm buying this book. Who is Bruce Wayne? Let me try to get into that mindset of this is the first time anybody in the world is exposed to Batman and who that character, like, just think of that. Batman is so commonplace, common knowledge in our world today. What was it like to read it for the first time of who this character and be able to whoa, I love this guy, to get into it. It's weird.
Yeah, no, I think that's rad. So, and I definitely want to talk about the Tech 27 experience and finding that a little bit later. But so as you're getting deep into the comics, obviously you've gone from there to starting this auction house. Kind of what happened in between that kind of took you on this path?
So, I was 13 years old when I remember asking my dad for a $700 loan to buy a collection of Transformers to buy and sell, whatever. And, my first big break when I was 16, like I was on Craigslist actively looking for toys. And there was an ad that said, do you want to be part of a new reality TV show? And it was the show called Toy Hunter. The pilot had aired on Travel Channel. And they were just getting ready to film season 1. My brother and I had just bought this large collection of toys, some really esoteric stuff. And so I submitted the thing like, hey, we have all this stuff. So they come to my house. We film an episode for season 1. And it was like 2 weeks later, the executive producer called my house and they were like, hey, want to talk to my mom and dad? and they were like, "Hey, Mr. Landry, Mrs. Landry, we would love to have your son be a cast member for season 2." And think of that. I'm 16 years old. I'm going into my senior year of high school. This is cloud 9 for me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm being asked to go travel the country to help make a TV show. It blew my mind. And so that carried me through my freshman year into my sophomore year in college, and then that show got canceled, which was a big reality check to me about the world. Oh, sorry, let me turn my phone off. Stupid. Oh, now it's on silent. Big reality check to me of like, wow, you can be on TV, it's fun, it's everything, but then it can get canceled. And in the blink of an eye, it can all go away. And at that time, I was going to college to study nuclear engineering.
Oh,
So,
all right.
yeah, total curveball from what I do now. But the background is my brother is actually wicked smart. He's like a Harvard postdoc, PhD, microbiology, really smart dude. So I thought that was the path I had to go down. And then after 2 years of struggling to pass chemistry and calculus and all that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to study art history, because my background of working, I've only worked in an auction house background since I was a kid. Like the weekly auction my parents would go to, I started out $20 on a Friday night. I'd be what they call a runner. I would just hold the items up like, hey, this is what you're bidding on, and I was a little kid working, and I would observe.
So these were live auctions in.
Yeah, these are like total what we call country style. There's no online bidding. You have 50, 60 people in a room, and it's like, they're junk auctions. In the world of the auction hierarchy, it is the bottom of the barrel. It is. There's no denying it. And they would run every week, and there's the cool guys in the back of the auction hall that buy all the expensive stuff. So they'd be like, hey, Travis, here's $20. Put up these lots, right? So I'd hold up whatever they tip me to put up in the auction, and I'd start learning the stuff and observing it and be like, wow, they paid $500 for this. They paid $1,000 for this.
What are some examples of what are the items that sold in these auctions?
Oh, like, a French 19th century porcelain Sèvres vase, or a still life painting of cherries by some Fall River art. I'm talking like real antiques, not pop culture at all.
So then I have to ask real quick, as you're a young child or a person carrying this stuff, did you ever trip and fall and break something or anything like that?
I did not. I was always extremely conscious of this stuff.
Okay.
And so, seeing this happen and what these guys were buying, I would study everything they were bidding on. And so it was the summer before. I was at UMass Lowell at the time, and it was the summer before I returned to my sophomore year. And get too deep. I feel bad getting into the specifics. It was
no, go deep. I love it.
It was a painting of 3 kittens in a milk crate by this Boston artist, Sidney Lawrence Brackett. And I had deciphered the signature. I had figured everything out. And, I told my dad, I was like, Dad, we have to buy this painting. Like, let's do it. So I'm at the auction where I'm working. I buy this painting for $800, right? I could sign it to Skinner Auctions in Boston. They're known for Americana, real antiques. I'm sitting in organic chemistry my sophomore year, September, and this is like the week before my birthday. I'm in organic chem. I'm supposed to be paying attention to class, but I'm following the Skinner auction, this painting that I bought and consigned to. And the painting I paid $800 or $850 for, I watch it sell for like $3,800.
Nice.
And so I say to myself, what am I doing studying organic? I just made $3,000 in it, like, in the blink of an eye. And it's like I'm busting my back to study all this crazy stuff that I could barely comprehend. It's like I remember I had to take Calc 1 twice in order to get a C. Like, I'm not proud of my mathematic abilities at all. Hey, I could study GPA and I could tell you percentage increases and tell you where the market's going in a heartbeat. But to be able to put like an actual mathematic equation together, not my strong suit. So I ended up transferring from UMass Lowell to Framingham State, where I studied art history, and where I just did a deep dive on everything fine art. And that's what really brought me in full circle into the auction business. And I started while I was still at Framingham State. It was my junior year. I'm still living at a dorm room. And there was a Rhode Island PBS show called Antiques Alley, local television. and it was just a show about antiques, collectibles. I got on that program. I was doing some consulting, and that's where I met my previous boss, where we got together, and I started a comic department where at Bruno & Co. in Cranston, Rhode Island, and I worked there for 11 years. And from the ground up, because pop culture, toys, comics, that was my backbone. But I love everything. Yeah, I just literally love everything cool and old.
Wait, so what was the name of that original auction company that you worked for that you started the comic division on?
It was Bruno & Co. out of Cranston, Rhode Island.
Okay,
So a lot
okay,
of guys
that was the name.
on Instagram, you were following the sales there. We sold a lot of cool stuff. And I started that, it was ground up when the company opened. Owner approached me like, hey, I don't sell this material. Let's team up. Let's do it together. And also, best part, working at Bruno. That's where I met my wife, which is an amazing part, best part of my career there. And, it's totally opened the door. I was living out of my first comic sale that I ever organized. I was still living out of a dorm room. And, I just went to the races and ran. And then eventually enough time went by. I had to do my own thing.
Yeah, okay. I want to talk about, but real quick, we got a question here from Manu asking, what are your thoughts on a reserve on an auction, the good and the bad? And what's up, Manu?
So I recently, the way I operate now at Landry Pop Auction, this is for like a sweeping declaration. I do not place any reserves in my comic sales, comic art sales. It's like I had a bad experience with running a reserve early on. I don't like it. I believe that with the comic market today, especially with how everything is graded, it's basically a commoditized asset. So it's no different than how you would value an ounce of gold. We know what the grade is. We can determine within a 15 or maybe even 20% margin of what we can predict something to sell for. Now, outside of commoditized collectibles, if you have a exceptionally rare, hand sculpted prototype for a toy, like something very esoteric, there's a place for reserves because it might have it requires a special audience that you might not hit on any given day. But when it comes to graded comics, graded anything that has been commoditized, I run no reserve sales. So like, for example, that Detective Comics 27, the 31, the Action Comics 10, that is all selling no reserve. It goes to the highest bid. It is what it is. Auctions are like the weather. There's great weather days, there's bad weather days, but at the end of the day, it's all going to find a new home.
Yeah. So let me ask you, you said you were working for the Bruno and then you were like, I need to do this on my own. So you obviously started Landry Pop. Let me ask, like, how do you feel, or how did that decision come about when you think about like these big comic auction houses? We got, Comic Connect, Comic Link, obviously Heritage is a big player in that space. How did you think like, I want to do this and this is how I'm going to differentiate myself versus those guys?
My big pitch to dealing with people and how we handle collect is when you contact our company, you deal with me. You deal with me directly. If you're not talking with me, you're talking with my wife, or you're talking with our handful of 5 employees that we have now. And my approach to organizing auctions is I want it to be a boutique experience where, like, when I'm running a comic sale, I'm doing one a month. And when you give me a Amazing Spider-Man 1 in a 3.0, that's a great standalone highlight. Where if you send it to a lot of the big guys, I don't want to drop any names because they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? Like, I'm not trying to be a heritage. I give them all the credit in the world. I don't have offices in Shanghai, London, whatever. But my whole thing is to strive on service, proper representation. When you look at our catalog, you look at our photography, you look at the layout of our website, I'm confident that we are delivering a product that nobody else is putting out there in comic auctions today. Like, I firmly believe our website is setting a new standard for how the comic auction experience should be. But, I feel there's room in the market for, if you have a passion for something and you believe in doing a good job and doing work to represent your client, there is room to grow. And some of the best collections that I have handled in the past, like handling the estate of Andy Yankus, who was a colorist for Marvel for 25 plus years, was the project manager at Aurora Plastics. That was a collection that I beat Heritage on, and great. Like I'm sure, yeah, they're all like they set the standard. They've done it all, but I want people to know you're getting an authentic, real experience that you can pick up the phone. You have a question, you can talk to me, and my goal is to just have every customer be happy.
Yeah, so I have two questions on that, and one of them actually, uh, Manu actually is what he put in here was something I wanted to ask. So, being the kind of smaller boutique size thing, and obviously you're newer to the stage than the Heritages and the Comic Links. Do you have to give any assurances to win people's confidence, or you just look, this is who I am? I mean, you're either going to trust me or not, or how does that go?
Well, outside, yes, Landry Pop Auctions as a brand, we're just coming up to our year mark now. But prior to that, I was organizing comic and toy collectible auctions for basically 11 years. Outside of the auction house, I work with PBS. I do all comics and pop culture for Antiques Roadshow. I mean, I have a core dedicated following. I have a customer base. I have the clients. So yes, LPA, it's a new brand, sure.
But
this is what I've done my whole life.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I was unaware of the PBS. That's really cool. That's great.
Yeah.
One thing I think would be, I'm curious to know your thoughts on, since you talked about being the smaller shop. One thing I find odd with oftentimes I see inherited auctions is I've seen auctions that they've had where they'll have multiple Batman ones, or I mean, I think I've seen it even where they've had multiple Tech 27s. And to me, I'm like, I feel like that's working against each other. Right now, obviously, there are different grades and therefore different levels of buyers. But I feel like I think I saw like one when it was a Batman 1, like 8.0, and then they also in the same auction were selling a Batman 1 6.0. And I remember thinking, like, I feel like that's working against, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
So, I mean, you can look at my auction, the part 2 of the sale of 22nd, the vault. I have 3 copies of Fantastic Four 1 in that auction. There's an 8.0, there's a 5.5, and there's a 3.0.
Okay.
In my opinion, those 3 copies are 3 different buyers.
Yeah.
Now, I would never put the same grade, or even my rule typically is 1.5 points.
Okay.
Like if I a 5.0 and a 5.5, I'm not going to put in the same auction. Even a 6.0 and a 5.0, I'm not going to put. But as long as I have 1.5 points difference between each copy, I have no problem running them in the same sale.
Okay, got it. Let me ask also, you mentioned a few minutes ago you won the colorist, I can't remember his name, that you said you won, and you beat Heritage to get the collection. I have no concept of the competition. Like, when these collections come in, is it always a competitive environment, and what does that like look like?
It all depends. It can be very competitive, and then there's sometimes that it's totally natural. People just contact us, and we're the one person they contact, and then we just go through the motions of handling the collection. There's very, like, when I look at my strong suit as a company, I try my hardest to get dealers and people in the trade on board, but they always default to the mainstay that has always been around. For my business model, where I really strive is with fresh to the market collection. So like every auction you look at on LPA, I would say 95% of the books that we are offering are books that I submitted myself to CGC. We had the pressing and the cleaning done. I mean, there's very few books that go through our auctions that are actually recirculated, as in being graded and sold second or third time.
Got it. Yeah, I'm very curious to just how this kind of business works. Now, by all means, you don't need to offer any trade secrets, but I'm curious to know, you get a phone call and they're like, hey, we've got a Golden Age Batman collection. How do you engage that from a point like, okay, we're talking on the phone, to, okay, I got to get on a plane and go look at this?
I mean, I could tell you the story if now's the time.
Please.
The Paperboy. So you talk about a Christmas miracle, right? December 26th, I get an email. Hey, saw you on Antiques Roadshow last night I have my father's collection of comics. Actually, I'm sorry, not comics, funny books. That was the term used. I have my father's collection of funny books. I'd love for you to take a look at them. That was December 26th. I respond, hey, great. Please, send me any photographs, send me any information you have. December 27th, I start getting photographs. I see like, early Tip Top Platinum Age now, pre-hero stuff, 1937. I see the Tip Top comics. I see a 1936 Flash Gordon 1. I'm like, whoa, this stuff is early. I see a DC Comics More Fun comics number 30. Again, pre-hero. This is really early. That was day one. I'm now the 27th. The 28th comes, more photos. But in addition to the photos, the client goes, hey, I found my father's handwritten inventory from the collection that he took in the 80s. I read the inventory. I see Action Comics 8 through 17, Detective Comics 27, 30, 31. I'm like, whoa, okay, here we go. I was like, please, if you could find these books, like I'd love to see them. December 29th. More photos come, a lot of the weird Dell, but boom, there's the photograph of the Action Comics 8 through 16, not the 17. The tank cover wasn't found yet. 8, and I'm like, okay, that's enough. And I'm like, listen, I call the client. I'm like, the value you have here, I need to be extremely, extremely conservative because I'm not seeing everything, right? I don't know if there's a page missing. I don't know if the back cover's attached. I'm like, there could be at least $50,000 here, maybe more. I need to hop on a plane to come see you. And she's like, really? It's worth it? Like, there's such bad shape. I'm like, the way my schedule works is this coming week, the office opens back up on January 2nd. That weekend, I need to be in New Orleans for Fan Expo. I'm like, my time to hop on a plane is tomorrow, December 30th, day before New Year's Eve. Oh my God, this is so, I'm like, now's the time. I mean, I'm going to base it because the other thing, my, detective skills, pun intended, it's like the inventory was totally accurate for everything she was sending me. Everything I saw was written on the inventory that I'd seen in photographs was documented. So I'm like, they have to be there. The 27, the 30, the 30, they got to be there. So I saw the action. While I'm on the phone with the client, my wife is on the computer finding me a flight. And this is like 8 o'clock at night on the 29th. And she's like, Travis, I can get you on a flight, 5 a.m., LAX. I'm like, boom, let's do it. So that morning, wake up, fly to LA, 2 hours, got to head east into like kind of desert area, California. Start going. If you saw the video, they were stored in trash bags in the woman's closet. And sure enough, as we go through, the inventory was 100% accurate. And there was the Detective 27 and the 31. So that's like the gut instinct and the fact of, regardless if the 27, 30, and 31 were there, I knew the Action Comics were good enough because in Action Comics 10, third cover appearance of Superman, even in universal grade, there's less than 25 examples that are out there. So I knew I had to take that gut instinct of knowing you have to take the shot and go. And that's exactly what happened with this group of books.
So when you find and actually see, Tech 27, Tech 31, Action 10, I mean, and you're now there to check that there's no pages missing, there's back covers attached, these kinds of things. At what point do you turn to her and say, hey, this has now gone from 50K to 6 figures? Like, how does that conversation go?
I do it immediately. It's my job, and that's why I love my model of business as an auction house, because it's a team effort. The more you make, the more we make. And, it's one of those, like that was the type of situation. If you were an unscrupulous dealer, you could have went in there, bought a collection for no money whatsoever, because the story was prior to contacting me, they were going to be essentially donated to like some type of bizarre church sale thing. There was no concept of the value that was there. And so that's what I love about my job, of being able to deliver that good news, to say, whoa, hold the phone. You have real money here,
What was her reaction?
Very easy. Oh, it was priceless. So that's why I had my buddy, Chris, come out with me. I was like, listen, man, that was the big thing I knew going into this collection, was I needed to document it. Because when you think in 2025, how many actual true organic finds are left in the world. You know,
Yeah,
like
let me ask you this question. I'm curious because you said that statement. So something I've said a number of times on this show is that I feel like in the next 5, 10, so we'll say next decade or so, we're gonna see some crazy similar type collections because I feel like, again, not to be morbid here, but a lot of these like kind of baby boomer generation kind of guys are passing away. And so they're in this, like in this scenario, their daughter, is cleaning out their house or something. They come across these. And so I feel like, do you think that's possible? Like, I feel like there's things that we're going to see in these next few years that are like just going to be continually blowing our minds.
so. I feel that is accurate when it comes to the Silver Age and
Mm,
like Bronze Age books, because you think of it, this collection, the gentleman who actually purchased them off the rack was born in 1923. So
mhm.
fast forward to today, he would have been
100.
102 years old. So a lot of those collections have typically already circulated once.
Yeah.
They've either come to market or they were discovered by the people that inherited them and then they brought them to market. Whereas if you were buying a Fantastic Four 1 in 1961 and you were whatever 5, 6 years old, you were born in 1955, 1956, you're 70 years old today. You're 71 years
Yeah.
old. So those are true, like those could be original collections that would be to find. But for true golden age original owner collections to surface, I think that is a true rarity today.
Yeah, like, yeah, and I agree. I would agree with that. And like one thing I think about is like on the census today, the highest graded universal copy of AF-15, for example, is a 9.6. And I think like, is there a 9.8 out there? Like there could be. We may not find it, but it may be out there that it just hasn't uncovered yet. So no, that makes a lot of sense. Um, is can I ask real quick, is the Detective Comics 27 the biggest like kind of item you've sold or are
Yeah,
selling?
no, 100. Of course, you could ask me that. Prior to the Detective 27, most expensive comic I had ever handled at auction was a Fantastic Four 1 8.0. I sold it January 1st, New Year's Day of 2021, and set the record at 150,000 for that book.
Nice.
And
Nice.
that was handling it. He was the CFO of Ashland, big oil food company. We had sold 20 lots. It was one auction that did it. Basically, it was like 780,000 over 20 comic books. And that so this is a new level for me. You
Yeah.
know, if you would have asked me prior to December 26th, be like, Travis, are you gonna unearth a Detective Comics 27 out of a trash bag? I'd be like, oh my god, that's impossible. They're all accounted for. And it's like, no, this is now the. I may be off by one, but if I remember, this is the 37th universal copy to now come to the CGC census. And even beyond that, like if you really get granular with it, the page quality of it, most of these books from the 30s, they have brittle pages, slightly brittle or tan, off white to white.
Oh,
On a
yeah.
book from 1939, that's like an unheard of quality.
Yeah, and then did I hear correctly that the Tech 31 is a 7.0, right?
Yes,
Is that the highest that's come to sale like in the last decade or something like that I hear?
it's the highest to come to sale publicly ever
Ever. Okay, that's why
in
I
the
wasn't sure.
history of the comic book market. Now, when you look on the census, there's 175, there's 180. Neither of them have ever transacted. The high per GPA, a 6.0 sold maybe 6, 7 years ago. A
Mhm.
6.5 recently sold privately through Instagram, but this is the highest grade to ever come to market at auction.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, I'm happy to hear that worked out for you. Let me ask now. So you got this collection, and again, this is not pertaining just to this specific collection, but let's use this one as an example, right? So it's got these heavy hitters in it. There's probably also a lot of stuff in there that isn't, of the same caliber. What do you do with those books in this scenario?
So with this collection, every comic that was taken, even like back covers, coverless books, I made sure to put them all in this auction. So that's why the last lot of the sale. You know, the title is Platinum and Golden Age Comic Scraps of the Paperboy Collection. Like, it was such a cool treasure trove archive of these early books that I didn't want to leave any single page back cover unturned. So,
There
but
you go.
typically, like outside of this collection, when we do sort big load, yeah, we filter them through a lower end format where we sell long boxes or half boxes, but I try to put as much online as I can for the client.
Got it. Got it. So let me ask you, you talked about how this call, it came in. How many calls do you get for collections on a given day or week or like I have no idea. Is it one call a day? Is it 10 calls a day? Is it 10 calls a week? What are we looking at here?
Knock on wood, I'm very thankful that every day I get calls, emails, messages. They're not all good. You know, today I took in a collection. Gentleman met me in the Chicago office. He was just super excited to come hang out with me and talk comics. Best book he had was a Spider-Man 252 newsstand. For me, I get just as excited with people and to enjoy their story over those books as I do the Tech 27. Because, you know, seeing the people, how they tell the story, buying these comics, relating to them, reading them. So it's, you know, the phone rings every day. They're not always a blue chip mega collection, but, you know, it's cool. It's amazing what people have today.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I imagine there's a phone ring and you're like they're like, I got an X-Force #1, and you're just like, oh, here we go.
No, it's okay, because then my follow-up question is, do you have X-Force 5 and 6?
Oh, there you go.
Right?
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a good response to anything that comes in like that. So, I guess I should say then, what would be your hit rate? So, is it 1 out of 4 calls that you're engaging on, or like what is the kind of hit rate?
Oh man, I mean, engaging on as if like I call the person to just see the conversation, or that I actually go pick something up.
Let's go pick something up.
You know, I'd say it's probably I'll say 70%. There's very little I refuse because, you know, unless you're like, hey, you want to pick up my whole collection of Valiant? I'm like, that's a little tough. You know, you want to pick up my open collection of 1995 Kenner Power of the Force, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I try to go out there and, you know, I want to help everybody.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Did you say now that you want to do you do just one comic auction a month? Is that what I remember hearing? Is that correct?
So right now, the way I structure it is I do a comic sale a month, alternating where 1 month I'll do like a Wednesday night sale starting at 6 p.m. where, you know, it's not like super high end. It'll be books that range from $150, $100 to maybe a couple thousand. And then on the other month, I'll do a Tuesday day sale where there'll be the big stuff that goes on.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask, like, does everything, you know, let's just say you intake a collection, does it just stay at the office, or what does that look like?
I mean, so the minute a collection is consigned, comes into the office, we go through, process everything, pull out anything for pressing and grading. You know, and then we have our own presser that works for the company. We do that internally, and then we submit to CGC. And we get, obviously, as an auction house, because we're high volume, we get a certain level of discount. Mm-hmm. We pass that savings on to our customer. We pay the expense up front, and then we deduct the cost from the proceeds.
Got it. And then how long? Let's see. So let's just do the math here. So we're on auction now in April, and you saw that collection essentially on New Year's Day. So is that kind of 4-month turnaround? Is that pretty common then?
No, typically it's faster than that. But with this collection, I wanted to make sure we had ample advertising and marketing. So prior to the auction date coming up, we were at MegaCon in Orlando. We did, oh man, my memory.
I know you're at EliteCon. I saw.
Yes, we were at EliteCon. We sponsored that show. We did Little Giant in New Hampshire, which was a great show. We're at C2E2 this week, And then next week, we're doing a preview at our New York gallery of the books before they sell on the 22nd. I wanted to make sure, I mean, a collection like this doesn't come up every day.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to make sure we could show the world as much as possible,
Yeah, I
what we
thought
had to offer.
I thought it was cool. Like I saw people's photos like at EliteCon, like with the Tech 31 or the Tech 27. I love that. Like, I mean, when I go to, not that I go to a lot of cons, I'm in the Seattle area, so I go to the ones that are around here, and I traveled for the first time to one last year. Hopefully, going to Heroes Con in North Carolina this year, and yeah, it's fun to like, there are some books like that. Like I'm not at least at the moment in the means to get, but it's fun that like I always love when like dealers like allow you like, hey, can I just take a photo of that Captain America 1?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's so fun. And I love seeing all the people that did that with those books at EliteCon. So I love that part of it.
Oh, it's the best part. I mean, hey, we're not like the analogy, we're not saving lives here, right? Like we're dealing with comics and toys. If you can't have fun and make people smile with this job, you shouldn't be doing it. Like that's my favorite part of the gig, is to make someone happy, to be able to hold that, first Batman, or whatever the book is. It can even be a New Mutants 98. Whatever makes you tick and makes you smile, I'm happy to help make that happen.
Yeah. Let me ask this. You have that background in toys. What is like, and so I'm assuming there are I've only looked at the comic books on Landry, but I'm assuming you guys do all the pop culture type items.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what would be like the Tech 27 of the toy world? Like what is that usually?
Oh man, today's market, it would be a rocket firing Boba Fett, the prototype. Okay. And it would be a rocket firing Boba Fett in a finished paint sample colors, not like the gray test shot colors.
Okay.
That's really, in my opinion, like the top of the mark in terms of blue chip toys. But I mean, hey, if you look at our January sale, we had a 1964 Astro Boy tin wind-up robot. It brought $122,000 for a tin Astro Boy, 8 inches big, a little robot.
Well, I was gonna say, what does that Boba Fett go for that you're talking about?
The market is a little depressed, as we know, since the COVID high. But I think today it would come up, probably be around 180,000 to 220,000, depending on condition, grade, the factors that go for a paint, for a finished sample. Test shot rocket firing Boba Fett to bring in about 100 to 150,000.
Nice. So when it comes to the toys, is it protocol to always grade them before you sell them? Of these like big items.
So toy grading is far more expensive than comic grading. Mm-hmm. So even just a basic Star Wars figure is about $80 to grade. So I'm really only grading a figure if it's like an exceptional example, or if it's really good condition or something rare. Like the auction I have coming up, I got a complete set of 12 back Star Wars. I got a 21 back Boba Fett. So these are all things that have to be graded. But if you have a Return of the Jedi, AT-AT driver, so a figure that's been issued multiple times, and even if it's mint, it's a $250 thing. Unless it's going to grade 85, there's really no need to spend the money to grade that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I have very little knowledge of the toy hobby, so if I ask some mundane questions, I apologize. But
no, it's okay.
Are toy collections essentially obtained similar to comic collections? Do people just call you up and they just have a collection to consign, or does it work any differently?
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, my business revolves around 3 categories. It's comics, cards, and toys. Okay. Those are my big 3. I do a little bit with video games. That market has undergone some weird standards, manipulation, however, not to get into it deep. I do sell sports, but I don't have an athletic bone in my body. I am not into sports whatsoever. I sell it as a necessity of the job, not something that I'm truly passionate about. But toys come in the same way comics do. It's just that with toys, condition is such more important factor, where you have a 1978 Luke Skywalker, okay? You have that factory sealed on a 12 back. You have a factory sealed on an Empire Strikes Back card. It's a great thing. You remove that Luke Skywalker and you have a loose figure, you have a $25, $30 thing. Most people did not keep toys factory sealed. So it's like for every one good toy collection we get, we probably get 50 great comic collections that we get to handle.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, Ryan here, he basically like he's like, I'm surprised it's not some Golden Age Batman toy or something like that. And it reminds me like there is a Superman toy doll, whatever you want to call it. It's like that the original wooden one. You could find a couple on eBay, and it's like supposedly I think it's like the first superhero toy that there ever was. And I'm always surprised, like they go for around like 3 to 5,000, and
Wow.
to me, like again, that maybe that's because it's based on the condition. Again, I have very little info on this. I always imagine that those would go for a lot more when I think about like Superman from the 1940s, first superhero kind of toy. What is it that makes like that Boba Fett so much more valuable?
You know, you make me laugh. I was going to say, you sure you're not watching Antiques Roadshow? Because literally 2 weeks ago, the episode that aired from Denver, I literally appraised a Sirocco Wood Superman in the brown and red paint variant. And the estimate was 3 to 5,000. So it's like, wow, what, you just watched my segment 2 weeks ago? That's hysterical.
Yeah. So then what is it that makes that Boba Fett specifically like the Ultra Grail?
I mean, you have to think about it. When it comes to Star Wars as a property, the movie came out in 1977. We're encroaching on the 50th anniversary of Star Wars. There is regenerated interest every day.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the world of Star Wars, there's no character that's more, bad to the bone than Boba Fett. He's just the cool bounty hunter, flick, captures Han Solo, puts him in the carbon. I mean, Boba Fett is just the cool bad guy of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the guy everybody loves. It's just like how with Pokemon, everybody loves Charizard. Every bubble, every form of collectible category has that character, that property that gets to be the peak. Silver Age of comics. For the past 20 years, it's been Amazing Fantasy 15. It's the cover art, but it's the whole thing. Boba Fett's just that guy for Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask, okay, so you said comics, toys, cards. I didn't hear original art. Does that mean you don't do it, or does that fall under the comics?
No, that falls into comics. We sell a lot of original art. I mean, my last sale, I just had like an awesome group of, oh man, I'm going to draw a blank. It's at his first initials. Iger is the last name. I am Iger. It's,
I was thinking Bob Iger, but that's the CEO of Disney.
Yeah, it's pre-code horror. Great, it was a 5-panel story that ended up selling for like 16,000. No, we sell comics and comic art. I blend into one category.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you're coming into all this stuff. Do you collect?
I do collect. So my thing as a collector is my rule for comics is and you're going to laugh at me, some people might hate me, my portfolio of comics, I can never exceed 50 slabs. I like to keep it rotating.
Yeah.
With toys, I still have my childhood collection of Transformers that's in my basement. I like to have one example of like a great thing from every category. So it's like I have a factory sealed Sears mail away with a blue snaggletooth for Star Wars. I have a Cobra Commander straight arms with the Mickey Mouse Cobra seal graded. So I collect one example of every toy. I love contemporary art. That's a big thing for me, supporting living artists. I love cars. That's why but when I say I love cars, I love esoteric, very niche Japanese cars. So it's like my grail that I found in the middle of Montana that I flew out sight unseen to bring back was a 1991 Isuzu Impulse RS Turbo. Not that it's valuable, not that they only made 600 of them, so it's really rare, but it's a niche piece of rally racing history, all-wheel drive turbo, 5-speed. But I collect everything. If you were to walk into my living room, I have like a 4-foot-tall 1920s Art Deco chrome penguin. My wife loves penguins. My wife Ashley, everything with a penguin she loves. So we were at an auction, and this big chrome penguin from the 1920s, like that's in my house, you know. I got furniture. The dresser that I take my clothes out of every day is a 1780s New Hampshire Queen Anne style highboy. Our credenza that our TV is on is by this Arne Vodder. You know, it's mid-century modern. Like I literally love material culture. I collect everything.
Love that.
It's a bad addiction.
I want to let now. Obviously, we're a comic podcast. Let's go back to that 50 slabs. What makes the cut? Is there a specific type of comic that you like to collect, and is it a function of when you have the 50? Is it like one gets bumped out when you have kind of one that's, let's just say if they're ranked in value 1 to 50, and then you get a new comic that you want to keep? Is it like, okay, well, this actually bumps the 50th comic off, or how does that process work?
No, it's just once I get tired of looking at something, you know. So it's like I had an awesome collection pre-COVID. I had FF1, AF15, Tales to Astonish 27. I had all the stuff that I purchased between 2015 and 2018. And then when I saw value, because the real thing that a lot of people, I try to tell everybody is it's all replaceable. Mm-hmm. You can buy another one tomorrow. So it's like my Fantastic Four 1, it was a 3.5 off-white to white. I think when I bought it at the time, it was like $7,500. And then it's like when I saw prices start hitting 35,000, 38,000, I was like, whoop, see you later. Like, it's gotta go. You know, it's like you got to make a financial decision. But now when I buy books, my thing that I really like trying to buy is Golden Age, like just cool things, like great covers. I've been on a pre-code horror kick lately. Like last week, I just bought a Horrific Comics #5 and like a 7.0. It was like this crazy hanging cover guy. And so I buy what I like, and then it's like after I look at it for a long time, you know, I'll move it along and just buy something else.
Now, how does it work do you have like certain rules? Like, let's say you get a phone call, someone's got a killer collection, you take it, and then in that collection is one of these books that you're like, I want that to be one of my 50 slabs. Is that against the rules, or how does that work?
That's against the rules.
Okay.
That is, I have a very stern approach to the way I run my business. Is if somebody is contacting me, they are contacting me to work in their best interest, no emotional attachment whatsoever. I always tell people, like, if you're calling me from the auction, you have to really twist my arm to get me to buy outright. And I do. I have clients that say, Travis, I don't want to worry about grading. I don't want to worry about fees, consigning this. I just want the money. Well, I'm not going to walk away from a collection. I'm going to buy it from you. But I really always try to push that. It's just I got to push it through because the good part about my job is I'll fall in love with a comic, and I think it's the coolest thing. The minute it's sold, it maybe takes 3 seconds, and then I've totally forgotten about it, and I'm on to the next thing.
Got it. And Manu asked the question I was going to next. Would you, in that scenario, bid on it in your own auction, or is that like you just don't touch your own?
No, I do not do that, no.
So everything you get for your own collection is coming from external Landry Pop sources. Okay.
And it's really, honestly, it's me, like, I'll buy things on Elite. If I see something cool on Instagram, I like to support or if I chime into a live sale, like if I'm on Instagram on the couch and I chime into a live sale for more than 10 minutes, odds are, just out of pure entertainment, I'm going to make offers and start buying things.
Nice.
You know, like when people shop my auction, I want people to know that everything is selling, no reserve. Nobody else is competing. It's fair game. So no, I do not. And there's some stuff that's really cool, you know, but it's like, I got to have that, I don't know, what's the now, like that church and state.
Yep. You know, separation of church and state. Yep. That makes sense. And I think that's, I agree with that approach, but I definitely wanted to ask. Let me ask though, since you just brought up the reserve thing again, you know, last year we saw a Tech 27 that went for, I think it was like 100. It was some 6-figure number lower than the previous sale for that. So it was a shockingly low number. Do you ever stress or worry that a big item that you have on auction isn't going to get to what you're estimated, or is it just c'est la vie.
It's honestly, it's typically say la vie, like just let it go, because the 90% of the people I deal with, it's fresh collections. We're processing it through them, and it's not that it's found money. They know that there's value there, but it is what it is. The market is the market, and especially when you look at like the actual market of what's going on in the world, the stock market with everything, and it's like it's been so volatile that I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the exact dollar that something's going to sell for, but in reality, when you think about it, whatever that end result is, it's a lot of money for some old paper that was printed X amount of years ago that was 10 or 12 cents.
Yeah, for sure. And let me ask, and we can kind of come to a close here pretty soon here, but can I ask, obviously, again, we don't need to get into the politics of it all, but obviously, like, there's a lot of things going down in the economy right now. Do you find that, how does the exterior of the hobby effects, how do they correlate to what you see on a regular basis?
So you look at this auction coming up in less than 2 weeks. It's like there are 1% heavy hitter books in there. 50% of me is worried, like, oh my God, the market is in turmoil, things are happening, so maybe people are scared to spend money. But then there's the other 50% of me that's like, well, if they're not putting money into the stock market, maybe they're going to put it into blue chip tangible assets. Because no matter which way you got, like a Detective Comics 27 is the second most important book in the history of comics behind Action Comics 1. There is a finite number of them, especially in Blue Label, natural. And on top of it just being a natural copy, it's a fresh copy. Detective Comics 27, they come up for sale every year, but they're typically books that have been recycled through the market. They've sold multiple times. It's all trackable through the serial number.
Yeah.
So the fact you have a fresh to the market copy, it's the first time it's 1939, 86 years, this book is going to finally go to a new owner after being purchased. That's something that, for whether you just invest in tangible assets, you're a comic collector, you're a collector of just exceptional things. In my mind, that is going to be the outlier of the financial markets, to where people are going to play for that and they're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah, and that's a great point about like the fresh to market concept that I never really thought about that. That's a good point. How does it correlate to if the economy is up or the economy is down? Does that increase or decrease the amount of phone calls you get? Like, the economy's down, I need to find a new source of money, let me sell these comics. Or is it the market's down, it's a bad time to sell these comics, so you get less calls? Or, how does that work? And then similarly, when there is an item up, obviously we're not, the Tech 27, like you said, it is a 0.001% of the books that people are chasing, right? It's so high up there. But for, the FF ones and the ASM ones, do you find they have more bids, less bids when the economy's up, down? What do you think on those things?
I mean, when the economy's up and people are making money, just look at COVID. Look at 2020 to late 2022. I mean, prices were insane. I mean, look at what people were paying for a 9.8 Spider-Man 300. They were paying $5,000 for a 9.8 Spider-Man 300 that there's thousands of copies graded. So obviously when the market's up, people are spending money. When the market's down, that middle of the road, lower tier stuff, it gets affected. The prices are not as strong. But at the ultra top end, that 1%, what we truly consider a blue chip comic, I feel, not that it's not recession proof, because prices, like if this was 2022, obviously the Detective 27 would be selling for a higher amount, but they're less volatile. And I think to paint the perfect picture is look at Hulk 181. Okay. Hulk 181 in 2021-22 in 9.8 was $100,000 book plus. There was some result of $120,000, $130,000 in 9.8. And now in 9.8, it's maybe 60 grand, 50 grand.
Mm-hmm.
But again, high population, a lot of them in high grade. And that's just the fact that's a 1974 comic that's 14 years into what I consider serious comic collecting. Like your first Comic Con documented is 1960. Your first, NYCC, New York Comic Con as we know it, is 1964. So by the time Hulk 181 comes out in 1974, you have a lot of people hoarding these books. They're buying one to read, they're buying five, they're two or three, whatever the number is to keep. Where in 1939, pre-war especially, comics that are pre-1941, nobody was buying them to keep. And then in World War II, you had paper drives, a recycling effort. So like the rarity is truly there. These are things that are actually rare where, you have a Marvel Premiere 15 first Iron Fist. They're out there by the dozen, and there's new high-grade copies being graded every day. So that's why when people collect, I always just try to push the idea of collect quality over quantity, and you'll be happier in the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you one final question here. Do you ever think that your pool of buyers at any level, whether they be at that ultra blue chip level or even at the Hulk 181 level, do you ever think that pool will become, I guess, is saturated the right term? Like, how do I say it? So like, is there a point which anyone that can afford a Tech 27 has one, and then you're like going to have a hard time to sell one? Or do you think that we're always going to be able to sell that?
I think at that level, demand will always be higher than
Supply.
the supply, because it's not just the fact what the comic is, it's the cultural significance, pop culture history of what Detective Comics 27 is, Action Comics 1, Marvel Comics 1, All-Star 8. I mean, granted, we are less than 100 years of comic book history, but when you look at material culture, pop culture, and how important these characters are, there are people that are not comic book collectors, but they collect great things, they collect historical things, and they want to own an Action Comics 1. They want to own a Detective 27. So I think at the top 1%, it'll be well beyond my lifetime. It'll be well beyond my son's lifetime before we see, crazy correction. Now, 150 years from now, if comics of these characters are totally dead and, Batman is no different than a Shakespearean character, sure, the market's going to be vastly different. But for the foreseeable future, under 100 years, and just of the timelines of relatability of how people look back on things. I mean, even just what, you look at the Batman TV show, 1966, Adam West, we're at a time where this material is going to be relatable for the long haul, at least in our lifetimes and our kids' lifetimes. So I think we're pretty safe.
Yeah. And I was just saying, I was like, it is always super interesting to me that, there's a number of auction houses, there's eBay, all these places. And whenever there's an auction, obviously comics prices go up and down, but the market always finds itself there for whatever the book is. And so, yeah, it is interesting to see. But Travis, I know you're at C2E2. Are you getting ready to go to there?
Yeah.
Just kind of cross the hour. So real quick, as we wrap up, tell people where you're at, where they can find you, what's going on, whatever you want to share before we jump off here.
No, absolutely. Thank you again for having me. Please check out Landry Pop Auctions, LPA, LandryPop.com. You can follow me personally on Instagram. I'm Pop Culture Travis. I'm always sharing what I got going on in the day's life. Landry Pop Auctions on Instagram. And, just look at what we do, look at the product we're putting out there, and give us a shot. We're trying to be there's the old guard of this industry, and then there's the new wave paving forward, and I'm just here to do a good job and have fun selling comics.
Hey, I want to say, just because you said that, the new guard, one thing my friend JP and I, who usually is on the show with me here, we always have this conversation about like how when you go to a con, it's like there's fewer and fewer, but you still get those like old, we call them the curmudgeons that are there like, no, you can't look at that book. You can't touch that. You can't do that. Like, so I'm all about the new guard coming in and kind of setting the standards. Yeah.
Hey, I've dealt with it. It's so funny. I feel like I'm an old man now as I turn 30 this year. But my whole life, all I've dealt with is that, oh, you're too young. How can you know about that? You know, it's like if you have a passion and you love the material and you love what you do, it should not be a factor. Yeah. And I think in our industry, you know, there's been a lot of people upset and irritated by what a lot of these larger companies do. And I'm just here to do the job and do it right.
Right on. And Manu saying, do you have a favorite saying in this hobby or anything that you want to sign us out with?
Oh man, favorite saying or favorite? Well, I love when I'm auctioneering and I get to say like, you bought it at the end of the night. And, but no, you know, I don't really have, I'm weird. I'm not slick like that. I don't have.
I think that's a good to size out. Well, if you listen to this far, you bought it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And for those that are going to catch it on the rewatch, thanks for checking us out. We will catch you on the next episode. But Travis, thanks again. This has been episode 100. Peace out, guys.
Thanks.